back to another episode of Divorced Like You Know What You're Doing. This week, I think it is high time that we address the most cost-effective way or the different ways you can budget your money if you're going to be separating and you want to keep your fees under a certain threshold. My name is Laurel Dietz, and I'm a family lawyer in Victoria, British Columbia. I'm the owner of Alinea Legal Coaching, which is an exclusively legal coaching-based law firm serving clients throughout BC. Join me on my mission to create 100 YouTube videos that people who are going through separation and divorce can use as a resource as they're navigating separation and divorce. The idea behind the videos is to help educate anyone who is going through this really difficult time, educate family and friends so that we can all have better separations and divorces. Okay, so the goal today is going to be different areas that you can spend your money to have the most bang for your buck. So what can you do? How can you spend your money on this whole process of separation and divorce so that you get to where you want to go faster and for the least amount of cost? There are a few options available to you, and these are just the ones that I have learned and seen through my clients to be the most effective. It really will depend very much on how well you get along with your spouse that you're separating from, and your comfort with educating yourself a little bit in all things separation divorce. So one of the first things that I would recommend that most people do before they even commence negotiation or mediation with their spouse is to get some legal advice. The purpose of that is to educate yourself about the laws, about rights and responsibilities and entitlements that you have after a separation in your jurisdiction. So you will need to go to a local lawyer who can advise you about those things. Before you go in to talk to your lawyer, it's probably a good idea to see what you can find online for free as legal information from trusted legal resources. So we're looking for government-based legal resources, perhaps a law firm's blog, but I would probably stick with resources that are produced by trusted organizations or the government to give you just basic legal information. And this can help you to use your meeting with your lawyer more effectively. So you'll be able to ask more specific questions. You'll be able to provide more detailed information about things that matter to you and get the answers that you need to be able to approach a negotiation. Clients that I have who get the most out of their meetings, their initial meetings with me, provide me with the most accurate and up-to-date information that they can about their current situation in advance of the meeting. So if a lawyer is giving you an intake form like we do for our clients, it's quite a detailed intake form. We're not doing it for fun. We do rely on those throughout the process of working with a client. And so if there's some bad information or information you got a little too lazy to fill in that, fill in properly in that intake form, it affects the advice and the time spent on your file throughout. The clients who get the most out of their meetings with me are the clients who've done a little bit of research. They've really educated themselves on really basic stuff. So they have that legal information that is available online. And then they have detailed their information to me in either a comprehensive email or through my intake form. Giving me, all the information that I need to be able to understand them and their current situation in advance of the meeting. They also provide me with the questions they want to have answered at that meeting. And we do go above and beyond asking our clients to provide us with information. We ask them to provide us with questions so that at that initial meeting, they get answers to their questions right away so that they can, walk away with some peace of mind and be able to take action on their next steps. Just to summarize, for everyone separating, I would recommend getting some legal advice about their legal rights and entitlements on separation. In preparation for that meeting, I would strongly recommend you do what you can to educate yourself at a very basic level about separation and divorce in your jurisdiction. So that means in your area, but not from friends and family and all that kind of thing. That's not the research I mean. I mean, looking for trusted resources, okay, government resources or trusted organizations who provided information for your area, and then making sure that you've advised the lawyer with as much detail as you can in advance of that meeting, and you've indicated to them the kinds of questions you would like to have answered at that meeting. So that is how you're going to make the most of your hour or 2 hour long meeting you might have with that lawyer. From there, you will need to decide, how do you want to go about the next stages of the process. So you might be on good enough terms with your spouse that you can just do a kitchen table agreement. So either emailing back and forth or just discussing back and forth how you're going to divide up assets and deal with parenting. And if you're if you're amicable enough, if you are able to communicate well enough, if your financial matters are not too complicated, that's a possibility. If that's you, then what you should do is record the terms of your agreement. And one of you should take that to a lawyer to have drafted into a separation agreement. Once that document is drafted into a separation agreement, the other person can take that and review it with their lawyer and get what we call independent legal advice. So the reason to have a separation agreement drafted by a lawyer, it will cost, anywhere from 2,500 to 5,000 is a standard range, at least in British Columbia, for a separation agreement. You might think, well, can't we save ourselves the cost of separation agreement just using the internet precedent? I would say if you're dealing with any significant assets like a house, or even if you're dealing with potential for child support or spousal support, but most significant, when you have significant assets that you are transferring between the two of you or sharing, you should certainly be paying for a separation agreement. And there's a few reasons, a legally drafted separation agreement. And there's a few reasons for that. The internet precedents that you might be able to find are not specific to your case. And while they might seem very legalese and sound great, do you truly understand what they're saying? Are they sufficiently specific to accomplish what you want? I have reviewed a lot of these internet agreements and they are so vague. They don't address all the issues, and they typically cause more problems with litigation down the road when things aren't the way people thought they were. So when you are having a legally drafted separation agreement, you are paying for a highly trained professional to look at your situation and tailor a document to you and your spouse and your needs. And so you're paying for clarity as well, making sure that every issue is dressed in a very straightforward as it can be, so that you will have clarity after the fact as to what needs to happen from that point onwards. The other purpose is you will be able to, a lawyer will assist you to address issues that you might not even know you had, tax issues, parenting issues, issues with transferring particular pieces of property, and making sure that you have properly valued property or debts and dealt with it appropriately. And then another reason to have a lawyer draft a separation agreement is because other lawyers are not typically going to give independent legal advice on something that you've drafted yourself or you've drawn from the internet. And if you are trying to qualify for a mortgage in the future, having a lawyer drafted separation agreement and your partner having independent legal advice on that agreement is going to be, sometimes is going to be their requirement. So another route that you can go, instead of just negotiating, if things are a little bit more escalated between you and your spouse, or things are a little bit more complicated, if time is an issue and you really just want to get this resolved efficiently and fairly, then the next very popular route, and one that I fully endorse, is attempting to do mediation without lawyers present. So each of you getting your own legal advice in advance of the mediation, I highly recommend. That's money well spent, because then you'll know what you're negotiating for, what you should be advocating for, how to present what it is that you want. You'll be able to accomplish more at that mediation if you've had legal advice in advance of that mediation. So you don't want to, mediations tend to be, expensive. Price tag of anywhere from $2,000 to $5,000 on it, split with your spouse, but You want to make sure that you're getting as much done as you can at that mediation, so you don't have to keep going back for additional sessions or realize you're in the middle of this mediation, you don't have an important piece of paper or important documentation about a certain asset. So in order to make the most of your mediation, you're going to want to make sure that all of your disclosure, you are very clear on what all your assets, your debts are, and that you have documentation about all these things. You're going to want to make sure that you're fully informed of your rights and responsibilities. Doing so will help you make difficult decisions in the moment. So a mediator, I will link to a recording that I did of an interview of a mediator, Christina Venters, and she explains the mediation process so beautifully. The mediator is a neutral party who will help you navigate those difficult conversations while still staying respectful, and help you get through some of those really harder points that if you were just negotiating on your own might just end up in tears or anger. Once you have your mediated agreement complete, the mediator, if they are a lawyer, will be able to draft it into a separation agreement for you. And it's worth paying them for that service. If it's an add-on, I would highly recommend it. Then each of you, you and your spouse, would go to your own separate lawyers to get independent legal advice on that agreement. The reason for that is just to make sure that the document does say what you think it says, and that the deal that you've negotiated is the one that is in your best interest moving forward. If you went to a mediator who is not a lawyer, they cannot draft a legally binding separation agreement in British Columbia. It might be different if you're listening to this video or watching this video outside of BC. But here, mediators who are not lawyers cannot draft separation agreements. What they will prepare for you, hopefully, is a memorandum of understanding. And that document can be taken to a lawyer and turned into a separation agreement. Should you take that step, I strongly recommend it because you've worked really hard to work out the terms of an agreement. You don't want to just stop just short of that and not have anything legally enforceable if things should go sideways. And I've said this before in my use legal services strategically video, which I will link here, is that if you are contemplating a huge financial shift for yourself, it is a good idea to double check your assumptions and your plans with a financial planner who might be experienced in forecasting after separation and divorce. So there are a few financial planners who specialize specifically in separation and divorce. You pay them a fee for their service. They don't take a commission from selling you any products or anything like that. And the benefit of doing the work with a financial planner in advance of a negotiation or a mediation is that you really are going to come to that negotiation or mediation with all the tools that you need. You're not going to be second guessing the deal that you're wanting to negotiate. And I've certainly had the situation where I've had a client in front of me in advance of, the working out the deal where, I had questions. I mean, I'm not a financial person, but I certainly would push back on various assumptions that were made. And, that can be a little bit daunting. You don't want that. You don't want to be on the receiving end of someone being critical of your grand plan for your future. Certainly, that's not a good feeling. But the benefit of having that challenge of your plan from an objective source in advance of your negotiation is that it means that you are really going to do your homework. You're going to do your research. You're going to look into what your plan is and make sure that it will work. You're not going to be just simply making a plan based on hopes and dreams and just like fingers crossed this is going to work. Like I have no freaking idea if this will work. In today's economic climate, you really do need to do your homework. You need to make sure your T's are crossed and your I's are dotted because, hopefully things are going to get better for everybody out there, but things are just so gritty for people now and uncertain. And so you really do want to make sure that you're making the best decisions. And the trouble is, separation, divorce, you're feeling a lot of emotions. You might not be making the most logical, rational decisions. or the best financial decisions in the emotional state that you're in. Do take a little bit of time. Do take the hundreds or even $1,000 you might need to make sure you're getting the advice before you are negotiating the deal of your lifetime. And making sure that you are getting everything resolved in the best way possible for you and your family. Okay, well, thank you for joining me this week. I have not been as regular recently with posting videos. I certainly hope to get back to that. And if you've liked what you've seen here, please subscribe, please follow, please leave me a comment and let me know if there's anything you would like me to do a video on. My goal here is to build up a resource, not just for people in British Columbia, but for people around the world who are going through separation and divorce, who could use some useful information and might not have the funds to secure this kind of guidance individually. So just a little bit of a nudge in the right direction is what I'm hoping these videos could be. So do share them with any friends or family that might benefit from them. And with that, I'll see you next time.